Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Furrion Chill HE replacement AC unit on a 2002 Freightliner XC motorhome. This is going to be a great replacement for an AC unit that you already have, and it's going to work with a few different types of distribution boxes, include Advent, Coleman, as well as Dometic. Now, we did find that we had to use a separate distribution box specifically for this HE unit, but it does drop in nice and easy. The HE in the name stands for high efficiency, so this is going to cool nice and efficiently. It can be used with a ducted or a ductless system. The high efficiency is accomplished by having dual motors, and that's going to get our 13,500 BTU capacity, chilling this down nice and quick. Now, sometimes when you're at a campsite or using a generator, it doesn't have enough power to get that AC started. Well, this has a startup capacitor already in there that's going to store that power, allowing you to get that AC rolling. It also has rubber isolators, which when it comes to any moving parts, trying to get that to not vibrate or create noise can be a problem, but the fact that these are built in, it's going to make it a nice quiet unit that's really going to get that efficiency going. Now, living on top of the RV, it's going to see a lot of sunlight, and this is going to be UV resistant. Our cover is also going to protect it from any water or debris getting in there. It's also got a nice foam that sits on the bottom, and as you crank that down, it's going to be a chemical water resistant foam. It's going to create a nice seal, making sure that your AC unit is going to be leaking water in even when those heavy rains come down. It also has built-in thermal insulation, and that's just going to make it run more efficient, but also keep that motor from running too much and burning itself up. So that's just going to help maintain that temperature and not overwork the unit. Now, this one is going to be specific for a Coleman application, and really all that comes down to is it comes with an adapter plug to go from your 9-pin to your 6-pin, so it goes into that main control unit, no problem, just plug and play. Now, as far as installation goes, one of the important numbers that you're going to want to know is this weighs about 76 pounds. It's not terribly heavy, but it is rather bulky, and we're on the roof of an RV. So you do have to find a way to get that up. So I suggest having some tall ladders and maybe a friend help you get this one up and also your old one down. The reason we're replacing this unit today is pretty apparent. Once I kick the air conditioning on high, that fan is reverberating pretty bad. It's still blowing air, but again, that's not something exactly you want to listen to while trying to sleep. So we'll get this shut off and start taking our grate down inside the vehicle. So there's just 4 little bits here. These ones are square bits, so we'll go ahead and get these removed and drop our vent down. And the great part about this kit is since this is prepped for this style of RV, we do have this adapter cord that's going to allow us to plug into our main control. So we'll go ahead and get our factory one undone. You just pinch on the 2 tabs on the side and separate that. That way we don't have power going to anything. So with that out of the way and unplugged, we can go ahead to the 4 1/2-inch bolts here. So we'll go ahead and get these removed. And these are what bolt the air conditioning down. And these are long, obviously, so they can thread into it. So go ahead and get all 4 of those removed. So at this point, we're going to want to head upstairs to the roof of the RV to start getting our old unit off. So we have the factory Coleman mock air conditioner up top. I don't think this hardware is factory. I think they had to do a little modification. So we're going to go ahead, we'll get this hardware taken off so we can remove the cover. Now we'll just take our cover off and we'll get this set aside. Now this has been on here for quite a while. This being a 2002 means that, well, that's a lot of years of this just sitting here. So it has kind of adhered. So you might want to grab a pry bar and just kind of work up the edges. And then once you kind of get it all loose, then we'll be able to move this out of the way. So with that out of the way, we're going to just do a little bit of cleanup here, try to get some of this off so it adheres a little bit better, mainly right here. Now, something you're going to want to be careful of is this is part of the membrane of the roof. So you don't want to cut this or damage it. That can pose a threat when it comes to leaks. But trying to get this nice and flush to where we can get our new unit in place is going to be key. Now, you may have a few issues that you want to tackle while you're here, and part of that you can see here, this insulation tape, this kind of directs it to the ducts. That way it can go into the ceiling mounted vents And what you want to do is make sure that you have a nice seal. So this piece kind of goes here to kind of close that off. This is our return, that's our supply. So if you have any issues like this membrane is cut, and that's going to allow moisture to seep in no matter how tight your AC is. So I'm going to take some thermal tape and just kind of patch this up, make sure it's sealed up really good, and just kind of make sure everything's nice and tidy before getting our unit in place. Now, quite possibly the hardest part of this installation is going to be getting your AC unit on top of the RV. Now, we have a forklift, but you might need some friends with tall ladders, and just, it's not terribly heavy, it's just very bulky, so just make sure you're taking your time and being safe while doing this. So at this point, we're going to get this lined up, get this as centered as possible, and we're going to be going underneath to attach it. So really, it's important to have this in a good spot, so just kind of make sure that you're matching this. Now there is some foam that's on the bottom side, and when we start to tighten it down, it's going to compress that foam, giving us a nice watertight seal. So again, it's very important to make sure that this area is nice and clean. So you can see that foam that goes around the entire edge here. This is going to be our new plug, so just kind of feed that in the hole as you're dropping this in place. So now let's head down inside the RV and we'll start making some of our attachments. Now with this centered up, the way that this bolts down, just as we saw with the old one, is it's going to need to go into these threaded bushings, and that's going to kind of cinch this down on the ceiling. But they do include these little offset brackets, and this is supposed to create that mounting point. But as you can see, I'm about an inch away from the corner here, and that's going to be the case on all four sides. Well, our factory air distribution isn't really going to allow for that. So as I hold this up, and this just kind of drops into place here. So I'm just going to kind of raise this up here, and where our factory mounts are going to be way over here. So that's not going to bolt up. So we do have to get a different distribution that's set up for the Furrion Chill HE. So that does mean we are going to be swapping some components. So make sure that you don't have any power going to this, as we are going to have some electricity that will be tying over to the other. So the main thing is we get this our main unit out of here. That way we can get it bolted up to our new distribution. So I'm going to go ahead and get this removed. Now something I did find is this is a little bit wider here, so as far as getting this bolted up, that's not going to be a direct bolt in. I'm going to have to do a little modification, just kind of cut these tabs a little bit. I think if I shave off a little on each side, that's going to allow us to get these factory holes to a spot where we can get this mounted up, and we're going to want to use some self-tapping screws to get that poked through. Now we're going to be, it's going to be a lot easier for this to bolt up after we have everything in place. And I've already kind of determined where we're going to be drilling. That's a safe spot here that's going to mount up great. Now when sliding this up, just make sure you're running all your wires through this center section here. So if you have any existing stuff, you can just tuck that through. And I'm going to go ahead and peel off our double-sided foam tape that we have here. And then as we feed this up, our AC unit came with quite a few different screw lengths to make sure that it bolts up. So let's first kind of press this in place. And then I kind of determined that these bolts are going to be ones, so just ones that are able to feed up through the hole into that thread. Now what we're looking for is going to be a pretty low amount of pressure. It's going to start to compress this foam. So right now my threads are pretty close, but I think once I get it started, it's going to compress this down and be a good spot for it. So let's go ahead and we'll get these tightened down. Now, what you can do is get one started, whatever one can get you a few threads. And it does come with this nice little bit here to tighten them down. So once you get one in, just slightly tighten it. It's going to draw it in, making it easier to get the rest of the threads for your other bolts in. Now, make sure that everything's aligned up as well as you can. Now is your best chance before you tighten it down. So everything should, as far as bolts, be pretty parallel, you know, as far as, you know, running straight up and down. So I'm pretty happy with what we got. Now there is torque settings involved with these, and it's going to come down to inch-pounds. So you might need a small torque wrench like I have here. The other way is you can kind of look at how much compression is happening on the foam. It's about 9/16. It's not a ton here, but we'll go ahead, we'll get this torque down on all 4 sides. And this is going to make sure that it's going to compress that foam enough to keep it nice and watertight, but also it's not going to be too tight, putting stress on our AC unit. So now at this point, we're going to take this plastic shroud, and this is going to go on that double-sided tape. So push it up against the foam, and this is going to make sure that air's not passing back the other way. And sometimes you have to trim these, but it looks like ours is actually fitting pretty well here. So the main thing is making sure these gaps up top are nice and sealed up. So press that against that foam and make sure it's in place. Now's a good time to take some of that insulation tape and also kind of just get all the seams here. That's just going to make sure that long term it's going to give us a nice efficiency from our air conditioner, where we're not going to be losing air through there. So go ahead and get those sealed up. So now at this point, we can go ahead and get our main unit in place. So what I've found here is I wanted to leave a gap, and that way we can get our, our plate in place there, that divider, but kind of just push this back as far as possible, and we should be able to run some self-tappers right through our factory spots here, and that should be safe to do. And I just bent these tabs using just a pair of needle nose pliers, just kind of bend those to where it drops in here. It's not perfect, but once we self-tap this in place, it should be great. So now we have our adapter harness. We're going to want to plug this in. So one side obviously is going to go to our factory spot here. And at this point, we can kind of tuck our wires up here as well as our thermostat. So if you need to, you can kind of zip tie everything up. Now, as far as wires go, these were already had wire nuts on them. We're not going to be using these, but for your spade connectors, you're going to want to make sure that you connect these properly. So if you can, I would recommend before you take this unit down, take a picture of them, and that way you can refer back to them, but we'll get those back in place. And now that we have kind of all of our wires in place, I'm going to zip tie everything up, make it nice and clean, and then we can test to make sure it works before putting our cover on. Now to get this set up, you're just going to get the Furrion facing the logo here normal, so it makes the F there. There's going to be 2 clips on this front side here, so just kind of snap that, and then this kind of swivels back here. We'll just be careful not to crack this. There we go. And with this off, this is going to allow us to get our screws in place. And then we'll just pop out these filters here. So there's 2 little finger tabs. And we're going to be putting the screws into these sections that are pre-threaded. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to slide this in place here. And it's just a Phillips head screwdriver to accomplish this. And then you'll see this way front. So obviously make sure it's facing the proper way. And now I'll just get the rest of my screws in place. Now at this point, we have these tightened down. You may basically make sure that it cinches up nice and flush along the top edge. And once you have that done, you can get your filters put back in. And then our cover says this way front, so just make sure you have that in that proper orientation. These little legs here kind of snap onto those tabs. Push that back, and then once you push this up, that should clip in place. And while we're here, you can also see this is how you adjust your vents for your return and supply as well. So there's a little bit of adjustability, but once you have this in place, all that's left to do is start enjoying your AC. And that was a look and installation of the Furrion Chill HE replacement air conditioner on a 2002 Freightliner XC motorhome.